Fund to employees of the United States Capitol Police who have sustained serious line-of-duty injuries and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Davis, and the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Brady, each control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to take my time to hold my remarks and yield to the chairman of the House Administration Committee, somebody I want to thank for allowing me the opportunity to manage this very important bill today. I couldn't ask for a nicer, more respectful chairman, and I yield 1 minute to Greg Harper.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of H.R. 3298, which allows United States Capitol Police officers who have sustained serious injuries in the line of duty to receive payments from the United States Capitol Police Memorial Fund. The bill is just one of the ways that we as an institution can recognize the swift and heroic actions taken by the Capitol Police officers who put their lives on the line each and every day to protect the United States Capitol, not just for the members of Congress, but for all of the staff and all of the many visitors from across our country and around the world. Our thoughts and prayers are with those who were injured during the June 14th shooting, including officers David Bailey and Crystal Griner, and we wish them a speedy recovery. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Mr. Speaker,
The gentleman yields.
before I reserve, can I run through a couple technicalities I may have forgotten beforehand?
The gentleman's recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks.
Without objection.
I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, first of all and foremost, thoughts and prayers are out for Representative Steve Scalise. I can't wait and hope to see him walk through these doors. I wish him well and his family well. And inside joke, I hope he has his beans in his pocket. He has, both being from Italian ancestry, we carry our beans with us, and I hope that he has them with him now with a speedy recovery. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong support of H.R. 3928 and applaud my colleague from Pennsylvania, Mr. Doyle, for helping to introduce this measure. Officer Bailey and Officer Griner are American heroes. It has been widely reported that their swift action saved dozens of lives. Every member of Congress owes them an enormous debt. Every day, thousands of our Capitol Police officers protect members, staff, and visitors in this building. You see someone at the doors, others working with canine dogs, but there are also many officers you do not see. These officers are analyzing intelligence, working with law enforcement, and performing many other tasks that keep this place safe. Should any of these officers be seriously injured performing their duties, this bill will provide some measure of relief and peace of mind to their families. I urge my colleagues to support the passage of this bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania reserved. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do want to thank my good friend, Mr. Brady, for being here today, managing this bill. On the other side, I also want to thank the coach of the Democrats who won this year. I certainly liked it better when we had the trophy, but to be able to know that the thoughts and the prayers are with so many of our Capitol policemen every single day, and also especially the heroic actions of Agent Bailey and Agent Griner and what you and our next speaker did with this legislation makes all of us who are part of this team very humbled and thankful. And I would like to yield 3 minutes now to our manager, the gentleman from Texas, the sponsor of this piece of legislation today, Mr. Joe Barton.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentleman from Illinois. Mr. Speaker, I'd ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
I thank you. Mr. Speaker, today is the 19th anniversary if you can call it an anniversary, of a shooting in the United States Capitol in which two Capitol Police officers, Officers Gibson and Chestnut, were killed. They were defending the Capitol, and a gunman got in and was headed towards the majority leader at the time, Tom DeLay's office, and in defending that office, they were shot and killed. The Speaker at the time and the Congress at the time established a Wounded Officers Fund, but they made it specific to those two fallen officers. And as we all know, on June the 14th, we had another shooting, although it was at a baseball practice for the charity baseball game where the Republican members were practicing out in Alexandria, Virginia. And two officers, Bailey and Griner, were both seriously injured in defending the 20-some-odd Republican members that were at practice that morning. So what this bill does, Mr. Speaker, is simply take an existing fund that was established for two officers that were killed in the line of duty and open it up now and in the future for Capitol Police officers who were seriously injured in the line of duty defending the Capitol and defending the members. I want to thank Mr. Doyle of Pennsylvania, the Democratic manager, for being an original sponsor with myself. I want to thank every member of the Republican and Democratic baseball teams who have signed on as original sponsors. I want to thank Paul Ryan and Kevin McCarthy, Steny Hoyer and Nancy Pelosi, leadership on both sides of the aisle, for making it possible to bring this bill to the floor. We introduced it last Thursday, and we're voting on it tonight. And wonders of wonders, the Senate's probably going to vote on it tomorrow, and there's a chance the President will sign it this week. We are showing the American people that we can work together for a noble cause. As has already been pointed out, Officers Bailey and Griner, both at risk to their own lives, defended the members, staff, and volunteers at that baseball practice on June the 14th. I watched Officer Bailey run past me directly at the shooter, risking his life, and two other Alexandria police officers who had arrived on the scene assisted him. Officer Griner was wounded but was giving covering fire, and that's when they brought down the shooter. They are heroes. They have sustained injuries. They deserved some assistance. The American people have donated probably $600,000 or $700,000 to provide some assistance, and this technical change in the existing fund would allow that to happen. I want to thank Mr. Davis. I hope everybody can support this, and with that, I yield back.
Reserve.
Is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'd now like to recognize my friend from Pennsylvania, Mike Doyle, for as much time as he may consume.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my good friend Bob Brady and Rodney Davis and Joe Barton, to not only good friends but people that have been associated with the Congressional Charity Baseball game for a long time. You know, Mr. Speaker, every day thousands of people, including members of Congress and our staffs, rely upon the men and women of the U.S. Capitol Police to protect us. And over the years, the Capitol Police have been called upon to respond to a number of violent attacks, selflessly risking life and limb to protect us and the people who visit this Capitol. As was mentioned, this is the anniversary where Officer Gibson and Chestnut made the ultimate sacrifice to protect the then leader of the House. And I know that all of us here are very grateful to the U.S. Capitol Police for their efforts every day to keep our Capitol safe. Everyone pretty much knows what happened. Members of the Republican baseball team were attacked a little over a month ago. Each day we get up at about 6 in the morning to go to baseball practice. It's a wonderful tradition that's been going on for over 100 years here in the House of Representatives. One game each year, Democrats against the Republicans, with the proceeds going to 3 charities: the Boys and Girls Club of Washington, D.C., the Washington Literacy Council, and the Washington Nationals Dream Foundation. It's not a softball game, it's a hardball game. We play hardball in Washington, and we get to play at Washington National Stadium. And we get to wear our home team uniforms and relive our youth. Most of us were just amateur baseball players in Little League and Pony League. We have a few guys that played at the college level. But we go out there and we practice every day and give it our all. And it's great camaraderie. And we build great friendships over the years. And every year we'd get about 9,000 or 10,000 people that actually come to the Washington National Stadium and would raise about $500,000 for the charities. Well, this year, something that none of us ever dreamed when we got up every morning and went to the practice happened. And that was a shooter showed up that day at this park in Northern Virginia and started firing on the Republican baseball team. Our team was practicing at the same time at a different location. And the first text I got on my phone during our batting practice was from one of my staff that asked me if I was okay. And I couldn't understand why he was asking me that question. But about a second later, news come on our telephones that there had been a shooter at the congressional baseball practice. It wasn't at first said which one it was. I knew it wasn't ours, so I knew it had to be the Republican practice. We called our players off the field. My thoughts immediately went to Joe Barton's son, Jack, someone that I've become good friends with over the years. Jack's what, Joe, 11 years old? And I think I've known him since he was much younger than that. And Jack will come here on the floor during the baseball week, and he'll come over and he'll say hello to me. And I'll try to see if I can get any secrets from Jack about his dad's strategy against the Democratic team. And Jack would always say, I can't give you any information on that. But I thought about him right away as we knew that shots were being fired and that people were down. And we called our team into the dugout. And about the only thing we could think to do, Joe, was to sit down and to say a prayer that you were safe. I prayed that Jack was safe and that nobody was seriously hurt that day. We all know our colleague and good friend Steve Scalise was seriously wounded and to this day is still in the hospital. And we want to send our prayers and best wishes to Steve that he recovers fully and that he and his family can get back to a normal course of life. But what a lot of people don't realize is had Steve Scalise not been there that day, his protective detail, Officer Bailey and Griner, wouldn't have been there that day either. And our friends on the Republican baseball team would have been pretty much defenseless against this guy with an assault rifle and an automatic pistol. But to their credits, Officer Bailey and Griner, this gentleman started over at the third baseline, and our friends were seeking cover in the first base dugout, which was recessed, to get some protection. But as the shooter started to move towards home plate, these officers realized that he was going to have an angle into that dugout, and there could have been a lot of people killed. And they come out from their cover and literally charged at this shooter, and both of them were hit. And they continued to fire on this gunman even after they'd been hit. And with the help of some Alexandria police officers, too, brought this shooter down. And thank God, no one on the baseball team or staff, all the people on that field, lost their life that day. The shooter did, but no one else did. You know, when you sit down and think about what it takes to make that decision, to put your life at risk for someone else, Officer Griner and Bailey knew that when they come out in the open like that and started shooting at this guy, that they very well could lose their life trying to make sure nobody else did. But they did their job, and they did what they were trained to do. And both of them got hurt, and both are recovering from these bullet wounds. And they have out-of-pocket costs. Their health care doesn't cover all of their expenses. They're on administrative leave. They're not making the same pay they would make as a protective detail officer. And there was no means for us to help them because of the way this fund was structured, only to make payments if an officer lost their life in the line of duty. And I think Joe's correct when he said that it was almost created specifically for the 2 officers that lost their lives. So we both came to realize that there needed to be a change in the law if we were going to be able to help Officer Bailey and Griner, and in the future, if an officer was seriously wounded in the line of duty, for payments to be made out of this fund. And that's the purpose of this piece of legislation that we have over 100 co-sponsors for. I believe every member of the Democratic and Republican baseball team has signed on as co-sponsors. And I know a lot of other members that weren't on the team have also put their names to this, because we want to make sure that Crystal and David know that we care about them. I can tell you the night of the baseball game, David Bailey was at our game. And if you would have seen the members come up and hug him and express their appreciation for what he did, it was a very emotional moment. And I know Crystal threw out the first pitch at the women's softball game. Those are 2 heroic people. Those are 2 people that put their lives secondary to the lives of the people they're sworn to protect. And I think it's only fitting and proper that this body pass this piece of legislation that will allow us the opportunity to help make them whole again, and to let the rest of our Capitol Police Force know that they have our backs and that we're going to make sure that we have their backs. So I am proud to join my good friend Joe Barton and the entire Republican and Democratic baseball team in supporting this piece of legislation. I hope the Senate moves swiftly on it and we can get this passed, and I yield back my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
The reason why we're here can't be stated much better than what my colleague, Mr. Doyle, just so eloquently delivered today. I would like to take this opportunity to yield 1 minute to one of our pitchers, one of our newest members of our congressional baseball team, and good friend, gentleman from Kansas, Mr. Roger Marshall.
The gentleman from Kansas is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, the morning of June 14, 2017, I elected to not attend the Republican team's congressional baseball practice. Had I been there, I would have been in the bullpen right where the shooting began. I thank God every day I was not there that morning. For my colleagues who were there, we have no doubt their lives were saved by the heroic response of Crystal Griner and David Bailey of the Capitol Police. In the shooting's aftermath, we should do everything we can to ensure they have the full support of the U.S. government and are allowed to support of groups like the USCP Memorial Fund. Mr. Speaker, in gratitude for their bravery and sacrifice for running to the battle, I encourage my colleagues to support the Wounded Officers Recovery Act. I thank them again for their heroism, and I yield back.
Gentleman from Illinois reserves. The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, may I inquire how many speakers gentleman has, if I would like to reserve?
We have 2 speakers and then including me, so 3 total.
I'll reserve.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania reserves. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
I'd like to take this time to recognize my good friend and our starting pitcher, Mr. Mark Walker from North Carolina.
Gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thank you for your leadership on this, Congressman Davis. Currently, United States Capitol Police are not allowed to transfer donations from the USCP Memorial Fund to officers injured in the line of duty, but only to families of deceased officers. The great thing about this legislation is that it would allow the U.S. Capitol Police to transfer those donations to injured officers as well as families of deceased officers to help defray and cover some of the medical costs. As a former pastor, I can tell you that one of the biggest stressors on families is when there has been an illness or injury to these families because of the additional financial strain. This is a common sense, it's certainly bipartisan across the aisle, of doing the right thing. I'm proud to support this legislation. Again, I thank Representative Davis for his leadership as well as Representative Brady, and I'm proud to support this piece of legislation. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Pennsylvania.
I continue to reserve.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania reserves. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
I'd like to recognize at this point in time and yield 2 minutes to my good friend who was there with us that morning. Somebody who I watched act heroically, and his watchful eye on the entire process is somebody who can give us his personal anecdotes. And I yield actually 3 minutes to my good friend from Georgia, Mr. Loudermilk.
The gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 3 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and special thanks to my good friend from Illinois for his thoughtfulness in this bill. Mr. Speaker, you know there's times in our lifetime that leave an impact on our lives, and we never forget that place or time when we experienced the event or we heard of the event. For my father, it was the attack on Pearl Harbor. He always remembered that moment and the place and the feelings he had when he heard of the attack, which motivated him to join the United States Army. For my children, it was the attacks on America on September 11, 2001. For me, Mr. Speaker, it's Flag Day. June the 14th, 2017, at a baseball practice. Not only will I remember that event, but I specifically remember where I was because I was there. Not only was I there, I was within proximity of 10 to 15 feet from the officers that acted so heroically. And still, Mr. Speaker, those images of that day are still vivid in my mind. There isn't a day that goes by, and I'm sure it's the same thing for the other players, that I don't relive a portion of that moment. But although those images are vivid, time heals all wounds, and at some point the details will be obscured by the fog of war and other events in our lives. But I will never forget the heroic actions of those two officers that day. Even at the moment when Agent Greiner took a bullet, which I believe was destined for me or definitely in my direction, it took her down and out of the fight. Agent Bailey came to check on his partner and immediately put himself even more in the line of fire to draw the fire away from us. I can't express how heroic these officers acted. Some may say, well, that is their duty, but what I experienced, Mr. Speaker, was above and beyond any call of duty, setting aside their own safety, their own persons, and putting themselves in a situation where death may have been imminent. They were in a gunfight with someone with a more powerful, more accurate rifle with handguns, but they never let that dissuade them from protecting the lives of those of us. And I would not be here today if it wasn't for those two agents. This is the least that we could do. As has been expressed by many other speakers, the cost upon the families is tremendous when someone is injured in the line of duty. And I believe that this is all fitting, and it is an expression of our appreciation for what they do for us day in and day out. I hope and I pray that we never have an incident like that again. But as history tells us, something like this will happen again. And I just hope that we have agents like Agent Greiner and Bailey on duty when that happens again. There were many miracles on the field that day, and one of those miracles is having the two right agents there doing their job just like all of our Capitol Police do every day. I support this bill. I support the intent behind it, and I hope that we move forward with this in an expeditious manner and that we have a unanimous vote on this. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield.
The gentleman from Illinois reserves. The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I'm prepared to close. You prepared to close?
I'm going to reserve, if you would, please reserve, and then we'll come back to a close.
I have no more speakers. You have any more speakers?
No. Go ahead, close.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, my dad was a police officer, and I know what it's like when they get that phone call in the middle of the night when they would call our house and we would jump out of bed, even though we was just calling to find out whether I was home or not. But I know the hardship that it could put on families. 9/11, when we were in our office buildings and we were told to run out and get out of our office buildings, our police officers were running in. 2 days later, on the same floor, when there was a bomb scare and everybody cleared out, we were getting briefed, and we were clearing out, running down those steps, our police officers, men and women, and first responders and firefighters were running in. We need to let them know every day, not just today, and this is a great thing we're doing here today for them. We need to know every day just how much we appreciate what they do. You know, we come to work here, we're protected, we have dogs for our cars, and we go through metal detectors, everybody goes through metal detectors, and they come to work and leave their house every day with a vest, not knowing whether or not, after they give their loved ones a kiss goodbye, the loved ones not knowing whether we're going to see them again. So make no mistake about it, you know, we need to let them know every single day how much we appreciate them and how they need to be staying, tell them please to stay safe. Make no mistake, Officer Bailey and Officer Griner saved many injuries and possibly many lives. So we need to thank you, and thank you, Officers Griner and Officer Bailey, and may God bless both of you. And I urge the passage of this bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, thank you to my colleagues, Mr. Brady and Mr. Doyle, for the opportunity to come here today on this floor, show America the bipartisanship that we see and we witness on this floor every single day, not just because of a baseball game, to do what is right. Thank you to both of you, and I want to again say thank you to my colleague, Joe Barton, for leading this effort. Not only leading us as the manager of our baseball team, leading us as somebody who brings their son, their 11-year-old son, to practice, to have fun, playing with a bunch of old guys who really shouldn't be playing baseball as much as we enjoy doing it. But to be able to do it, to raise money for local DC charities, Joe, Jack, Barry, me, and the rest of us that were there that morning, none of us ever thought that at 7:09 or approximately there, before or after, that we'd hear the words, "Run, he's got a gun." And it was mentioned by Mr. Doyle about those of us who dove in that dugout. Let me tell you something, Mr. Speaker. I think I could have beaten Usain Bolt from home plate where I was standing to that dugout that day. And dove in that dugout, not knowing where the shooter was, what the shooter's motives were, and what was next. And as I was working my way outside of that dugout, I saw Agent Bailey come onto that field in the line of fire to protect every single one of us that were there that day. And it wasn't just members of Congress. It wasn't just people that this shooter may have politically disagreed with that morning that were there that day. It was an 11-year-old boy like Jack Barton. There were innocent people walking in that park, walking their dogs in the line of fire that morning because this person may have disagreed with what we do on this floor. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching today, understand again what we're doing here, which is what is right to help those heroes, Agent Bailey and Agent Griner, get access to the funds that all of America put forth on their behalf in less than 24 hours after that tragic shooting. Let us all remind them that we do get along. We do work together. It's not just when tragic moments like this happen. It's a lot more often than what you see. 24 hours after that shooting, the American people stepped up and they did what Americans do in the wake of tragedies every single time we witness them. We had already raised a record amount of money for local DC charities with this year's game. $600,000, $100,000 more than what was normal. And they sold again 10,000 seats. In less than 24 hours, the American people from all over this great nation raised another $900,000 to go to local DC charities and to the Capitol Police Officers Memorial Fund, which was added the last day. They sold also 25,000 tickets. I think that game that night, we outsold like 3 major league games in attendance. We obviously didn't play as well as they did, but we outsold them. And that shows you what America's all about. It shows you what Republicans and Democrats are all about. It shows you that in the senseless wake of a senseless tragedy, where we watched our friend lay on that field, not knowing what the outcome was going to be for Steve Scalise and his family. Matt Micah, Zach Barth, Agent Griner, Agent Bailey. Those two saved the lives of everyone on that field today. Charging at gunfire is not something I ever thought I would do, and I didn't do that day. But thank God they were there, and they did. And those Alexandria police officers, the police officers I never saw arrive at that scene, thank God they were there. Because it's the heroic actions of all of those officers, especially those two that I joke with when I walk onto this House floor, when I would see them here, not knowing that we'd ever be a part of something that will bind us all together. A tragedy that happens one morning in Alexandria, Virginia, while a bunch of old guys are playing baseball. We will forever be bound by what we saw and what we witnessed that day. And there is not an hour in the day that goes by in my life that I don't think about what happened on that field that morning. The smells, the sounds, the fear that all of us experienced that day could have been, as every speaker said before, much, much worse without the heroes that ran towards gunfire, sacrificing themselves for every one of us and every innocent person in that park, in that field that day. This is why we've got to make this technical change, Mr. Speaker. We're here, we're lawmakers. We write the laws. We can change the laws. And when this fund was set up, because of the tragedy that many still in D.C. witnessed that day, with Officers Gibson and Officer Chestnut, who were gunned down protecting innocent Americans in this building. This fund was set up to honor them, not knowing that years later, on today, the anniversary of that shooting, that years later, we would need to modify this bill to help 2 more of our heroes who are lucky and blessed enough to survive. Today, we're going to do that because of the leadership of Mr. Barton and Mr. Doyle. And let me go back to that day in 1998. I was actually a new staffer for a new member of Congress named John Shimkus. I was sitting in the district office in Springfield, Illinois, when I heard the news that shootings were happening in the U.S. Capitol. The fear as a staffer that went through me, wondering where my friend and my boss was. But I got to see it from out there. I never thought, years later, I would get to witness it as a member of Congress. And witness it we all did, but also we learned from it, and we learned what America was all about. And today is our day in the U.S. Congress to stand up for those heroes that protected us that day and say, we're going to help you. I and my family, my kids, my wife, every family member that I was able to reach out to that morning, and all those who I weren't able to talk to. We cannot say thank you enough to Agent Griner, Agent Bailey, and the Alexandria Police Department for making sure we have the ability to make this fix. I urge every one of my colleagues to vote yes on this bill. Let's send a message back to America that we thank them for what they did for our officers, and we thank them for allowing all of us the privilege to serve in this great institution. And Mr. Speaker, with that, I yield back.
The gentleman from Illinois yields back. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill, H.R. 3298? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, The rules are suspended. The bill is passed. And without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.